Welcome to this week's episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in as little as 15 minutes to build your dream business. And now here's your host, the Visibility Whiz, Cindy J.
Hi, I'm Cindy J, the Visibility Whiz, and welcome to this episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in 15 minutes or less to build your business. Today, our guest is Rhonday Y Williams, and she's a speaker, author, and coach with nearly 2 decades of leadership experience. Rhonda now uses emotional intelligence to help others define an action-oriented path to well-being, happiness, and success. She's the founder of the Society of Successful Women, an achievement-driven organization for women of influence. She is a 3-time author and is known as the Dream Life Coach because she is unapologetic about helping women transition from the life they live to the life they love. Welcome, Rhonda. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
And to begin with, Rhonda, can you share a personal or business challenge that you had to overcome in order to achieve your level of success?
Absolutely. I know that as we look back along our road to success and how we get to where we are, we can sort of identify with many different challenges, ups and downs. For me, I sort of took the long road to get to where I am today and recognizing my true passion and purpose. I started off, I'm a registered nurse by background. And I've had wonderful experiences leading hospitals and organizations and teams. And so as I traveled that road, I found myself sort of ascending the corporate ladder, right? The career ladder, which was great. It seemed like a great thing to do at the time. But as I got further and further up that ladder, it didn't feel so good. There was something that wasn't quite sitting well with me. So as I continued, I ended up going through a really traumatic period in my life where I ended up losing my job over some craziness after I'd worked at this organization for nearly 20 years. I ended up finding out that the man that I was married to for 25 years was not the man I needed to stay married to, right? So all of this craziness was happening in my life. And that brought me to a point where I had to really start to reflect on what it was I really wanted to do with my life. What was my purpose? Why was I here? Why were things going in the direction that they were going? Eventually, what I came to understand is that my purpose and my passion is helping women, helping people really sort of free themselves. And I was doing it in a different form when I was, a chief nurse and a hospital CEO. It was just sort of taking a different form, but it took a while for me to figure that out. But through that process, Cindy, one of the most challenging things that I faced was really being able to tune in and learn how to please myself.
Right. That's definitely a big one.
Absolutely. Because, as you go on this journey, you find yourself at a point where you are focused on pleasing everyone else around you, right? If it's not the children, then it's the spouse or the significant other. If it's not them, it's your organization and what you're trying to contribute. It's your boss, it's the leaders. It seems that it's focused on you pleasing everyone else and making everyone else happy. When I got to this point in my life where I went through this experience and I really sort of had to step back a little bit and try to figure out who I was, I had struggled to answer the question, who was I? What was going to make me happy? I had defined myself so long by, being a wife, a mother, I'm a leader in an organization. I'm all of these things. And when I stepped back and said, who is Rhonda and what does she need and what makes her happy? That's the point where I thought to myself, wow, I'm having a hard time answering this question. So for me, tuning in and learning how to say yes to me, how to make me happy and go down the road where I feel that is my purpose and my passion, that was really one of the biggest challenges I had to overcome.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. And I find that to be true, especially with so many women, because we were raised to serve other people. We were raised that we were, that our needs and our desires and wants was less important than others. And it's huge whenever you start stepping out like, who am I? What do I want to do? And do it unapologetically.
Absolutely. I don't think we need to apologize for being the beautiful,
Right.
wonderful, strong, amazing people that we are. We should not be apologizing for that.
Exactly. And I know that one of the tools, the biggest tool that you use in your coaching business is about emotional intelligence. So, can you explain what emotional intelligence is and what an EQ is and why it's so important to us?
Absolutely. This is probably one of the most significant discoveries, at least in my life, and that has really made a difference for me. Emotional intelligence, and we use the term EQ and emotional intelligence interchangeably, sort of like IQ. Is the intelligence quotient, emotional intelligence, we refer to as EQ, the emotional quotient. So, emotional intelligence, really, when you sort of boil down all of the wonderful terminology that they use to describe it, emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions, to recognize and understand emotions in others, and to use that information intelligently so that you get the outcomes that you're looking for. Right. So, what does all that mean? It simply means that we were gifted with internal guidance system called emotions. And these emotions give us a ton of information. One of the things that women sometimes have to overcome is the label that people apply to us in being too, quote, emotional, right?
Yes.
There really is no such thing. You might be displaying your emotions in a way that are not serving you well.
Hmm.
You really can't be too emotional. You need to tune in. What those emotions are doing is they're feeding you bits and pieces of information all day long. And it is then
Hmm.
our responsibility to recognize that, number one, that is happening. Number two, to try to discern, what does it mean? So when you're driving up the street and you see someone in a Cayenne Porsche, right, cherry red, and you're excited, or maybe there's a little twinge of jealousy there, what's that telling you? Right? That's telling you information. It's telling you, gosh, you think you deserve that. You want that too. You want to be in a position to get those things. So every single emotion that we feel is there for a reason. Here's another important point about emotions. There really are no good or bad emotions. Emotions are simply
Right.
information. And so we decide if they're good or bad. You may
Hmm.
act on them in an inappropriate way or a way that feels bad, but the emotions themselves are not good or bad. They just are giving you information. So that is what emotional intelligence is. The reason why it's so critical is when I was young growing up, all I heard about was IQ, right?
Right.
IQ is so important. Well, research has since proven that the most important indicator of success is actually not IQ, it is EQ. And so, for everyone out there, whatever your business is, whatever career you're in, whatever you're doing, if you want to try to fast track your success, one of the ways that you want to do that is by focusing on fine tuning and improving your EQ.
Exactly. And I know even whenever you're helping people, you deem the term UCR that helps people to stop spinning and really soar and step into their success. So, what is UCR and how can we use this for our own success in our coaching businesses?
So UCR, I love this because a lot of the work around emotional intelligence, it can be sort of very conceptual and very high level. And my goal is to boil it down quick and simple. What do you need to take away so that you can start using this immediately in your life? So I developed a technique called UCR that really boils EQ down in a practical way so that we can use it every day. UCR stands for understanding, communication, and response. When
Hmm.
you really take all of the elements and you break it down at the end of the day, in order to be effective at what you're doing, you have to be effective in these three areas. You need to make sure that you have a firm grasp and understanding. So your firm grasp and the understanding is number one, what do you understand about yourself with this situation? So in the situation that I mentioned earlier, the scenario, you're driving up or let's use a different one. Maybe you're at the office and there's a colleague or a coworker that just pushes all of your buttons, right? Really sort of drives you a little bit nuts. What do you understand about yourself in that situation? What is it that's really bugging you, right? So doing a deep dive into your own emotions and thoroughly understanding what you're feeling. Now, what's happening with the other person? So understanding is not a one-sided coin. When you are truly going to understand the situation so that you can be most effective, you've got to understand not only yourself, but you also got to try to understand a little bit about the other person, right? Look through the situation with their lens. Where are they coming from? What are they feeling and what are they reacting to? And so once you understand what you're feeling and thinking, you've tried to get a good understanding or a good idea of what the other person is feeling and thinking. Then the final piece of the you is trying to make sure that you determine what is the outcome that you're looking for, right? What's the best case scenario? What do I really want to happen here? So understanding is huge. And you
Right.
can't move on to the C and the R without, it's almost like Monopoly. You know how they say don't pass go?
Right.
Well, you don't move on to the UCR, to the C and the R until you have a good understanding of the U. Because if you do, without doing the work that's required in a U, and it sounds like a lengthy process, but it's really not when I teach it to my clients. When you understand the U, then you can confidently move into the C and the R. So the C is the communication. Now that you understand, you know what you're thinking and feeling, you know what's driving that, you know what the other person's thinking and feeling, you have a good idea of what might be driving that, and then you determine what you want to happen in this situation. Then you move to the C, where C is about communication. And there are so many different ways that we communicate, right? We communicate non-verbally with our facial expressions. We communicate with our body language. We also communicate, of course, with our words, which is only a very small percentage of our communication. You know, they say only 7 to 10% of your communication is verbal, which means all of the rest is being done by everything else, your body language and your facial expressions, your tone, those sorts of things. And so now that you understand what you want to happen in this situation, sort of in the one that we just mentioned earlier, now how do you need to communicate in order to really get to that outcome that you're looking for? Because at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. It doesn't so much matter who's right or who's wrong, you know, who maybe made the mistake this past time. What really matters is what you want to come out of this. And let's say your goal with this colleague that's pushing your buttons is maybe just to have a more harmonious, a more collegial relationship with them. So in the way that you communicate should be driven by that goal. Everything that I do and say is going to be driven with that goal. So I am going to not worry about who is right or wrong, what you did to me yesterday, the argument that we had the other day. I am strictly focused on my goal, which is a more harmonious relationship. So that's the C. It's all about how do you communicate to support your goal. And then the final step of UCR is the R. That is, how do you respond? This is about what you actually do. You want to make sure in terms of your response and your action that there is alignment between the UCR process. So you say you want a more harmonious relationship with this colleague. It could be a colleague, it could be a spouse that you're having trouble or doing a lot of arguing with. You say you want a more harmonious relationship. So number one is your communication should support that goal. But then number two, your response and your actions have to also support that goal. So I can't say to you, you know what, I really want to just help us get along better. What can we do? But then I go over on the side and I'm being passive aggressive, or I'm being, you know, slightly, maybe a little bit judgmental, and I'm acting out and I'm doing things. I purposely, move the copy paper so they can't find it, right? So my actions then are not in alignment with what I say my goal is and what is I'm verbally and non-verbally communicating. And when there is misalignment in the UCR process, all kinds of craziness and chaos breaks out because
Right.
alignment is necessary in order for you to move your goals forward.
Very, very good. I love your approach on it. I love the UCR because it is so true to understand. Now, you're saying understand your emotions, but what is the difference between emotions and feelings?
Yeah, so we tend to use those terms interchangeably, but they're really not the same. So, scientifically speaking, emotions are so the what we like to say is the body is the playground of emotion, where the head and the mind is the playground of feelings. And
Hmm.
so, what that means is that emotions are often more instinctual. Oftentimes, you may not be able to control an emotional reaction. People say, oh, control your emotions. Well, sometimes that's possible, but sometimes it's not. Here's a great example. You're walking through the park and it's a bright, sunny day, things are going well, and you come across a lion in your path. You're not going to be able to control the emotion of fear, right? You don't
Right.
have to think about getting scared. You don't have to say to yourself, okay, stop, let's be scared, right? That's going to instinctively happen because your body has those protective mechanisms built in. So emotions typically play in the body, and there's also a physiological response that happens when you're feeling true emotions, i.e., your heart starts beating a little bit faster. Your breathing might increase or decrease based on what you're feeling. Sometimes there's pupil dilation that we don't even recognize. We may begin to sweat or something like that. So these are physiological responses that can be measured. That's when we talk about those are true emotions. Feelings, on the other hand, are often driven by thinking. And so your thoughts are really what keeps your feelings going. So let's say you have this emotion, right? And maybe someone makes you angry, and it's just instinctive. You get upset, you get angry, your heart rate picks up. That emotion really typically only lasts a very short period of time. But what makes it last? What makes it last is the way that you begin thinking about this situation. And that then perpetuates and feeds a cycle that can keep these feelings lingering for a longer period of time. So when we say control emotions, what we really should be saying is control your feelings. And the way that you do that is by managing your thinking. And that you absolutely have control of. You can change your thinking. Now, I'm not saying it's easy because for most of us, thinking is habitual. And
Right.
I think a certain way because I've been doing it for 30 years. And now you're telling me that I should think differently. And that's
Hmm.
not easy. So we use some techniques with clients to help them do that. But at the end of the day, if you want to change your feeling, you change your thought. Here's a really quick example that I'll give you. One of the things that I coach women on often is how do I get over someone? Right? How do I get over this love of my life that I don't no longer have this relationship? I can't believe this has happened to me. How do I get over that? Well, we work on specific techniques to help them change their thinking
Hmm.
around it, and then they don't feel so badly, and then you can really turn and you can focus on what's ahead of you instead of focusing on what's behind you. So that's kind of the difference between emotions and feelings. Emotions are more instinctual, often have a physiological response, where feelings really are generated and maintained by your thinking.
Right. But don't feelings have this physiological responses as well?
Well, sometimes feelings trigger emotions.
Okay.
Right? So it can happen in reverse also. So,
Hmm.
if let's say I could be sitting on the sofa and doing not a whole lot of anything, and I think of a situation that I was really frustrated in. Maybe yesterday at work, this person really made me angry. I thought I was over it, but now I'm sitting here having a cup of coffee and it's coming back. And I continue to think about that. You can actually trigger emotions based on that. And so now all of a sudden you do have a physiological response to it because those feelings have begun triggering emotions.
Right. And I know, Rhonda, you've spoken, you really love working with women, and you have the Society of Successful Women. So can
Yes.
explain a little bit what that is and why you have such a passion for it?
Absolutely. So as we mentioned earlier, my goal is for every woman out there to be unapologetic about being bold and standing up for who they are. The Society of Successful Women is a community-based organization that I founded because women are so often judged on so many different things. Right? We're judged for the way that we look, the way that we talk, when we decide to start a career. There are all of these judgments placed on us. Well, I felt like it was time for us to form a supportive group, a supportive network that can, number one, cheerlead each other on, help each other really make the progress we want to make in our lives, while at the same time holding us accountable in a loving and caring way. Right. So what we do is our women set goals that they want to achieve, and then we hold them accountable. We say, how's it going? Are you making progress? Come on, let's move. Let's move. What can we do to help you and support you? And then every milestone you're reaching along the way, we want to cheer your success. So that's what we do at the Society of Successful Women. We coach women towards moving forward towards their dreams in a very consistent way that helps them feel good and helps them make the progress they want. Now, one of the things that we do as a Society of Successful Women is we have a public-facing group. So that's our private group, but our public group is the Successful Women Rock Group, and that is where we hold events. We are currently in the process of planning a destination retreat. And it will be a healing and lifestyle design retreat. So what does that mean? It's really a retreat where we tune into who we are. We start to love on ourselves and get really comfortable with that process. And then we also go through the process of designing the amazing dream life that we all deserve. So on this retreat, you're going to come away feeling wonderful, amazing, really comfortable and happy and excited about who you are as a woman. And then you're going to be super excited because you're going to walk away with a dream life design plan. When you walk away, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is the life that I'm building. This is my ultimate life that I really want, that would be the fulfillment of my dreams. So you're going to walk away from that retreat. So we're doing a cruise in October. If anyone is interested, they can certainly reach out, but we're going to cruise to the Bahamas. It's going to be a 4-night cruise where we go and we get this wonderful healing, really get in touch with our wellness, our self-love, and design our dream life.
Sounds fantastic. Thank you so much. And Rhonda, I know that you have a strategy that our listeners can implement in 15 minutes or less to build their business. So can you share what that is?
Absolutely. So what I would recommend is every day do a short period of reflection, 5-10 minutes of reflection. You can do it at the start of the day for how you expect for the day to go, or you can do it at the end of the day when you're looking back saying, okay, did the day unfold as I expected it to? And what I would recommend is that your listeners use the UCR technique for that reflection. Because remember what I said earlier, the greatest indicator of success are those that are high in emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence can be built, it can be improved, it can be fine-tuned. So this reflective exercise that you're going to do every morning, 5-10 minutes in the morning, 5-10 minutes in the evening, is going to help you improve your emotional intelligence. You're just going to use UCR. Take your situation that you're expecting, walk through the UCR process. What do I understand about the way this event unfolded? For me, what do I understand about what happened for the other person? What were they probably thinking and feeling? And what did I really want to happen out of this? And then you move to C. How was my communication? What was my nonverbal? What was my tone? What was my body language? What was all of my communication strategies? What did it say? And did that align with my goal? And then what was my response? What did I actually do after that? If I told my wife that I want to make sure that we're not arguing about taking out the trash every day, and I say, honey, I want this. I want to make sure that you're happy. So I'm saying the right things, communicating. But at the end of the night, if I don't take out the trash, then I've broken the alignment, right? Because my response is not consistent. And so I would use UCR, quick reflection, either in the morning or in the evening or both, but it should not take you any more than 15 minutes or so a day.
Very, very good. Thank you very much for sharing that. Love that strategy. And Rhonda, I know that you have a wonderful gift for our listeners. Can you share what it is?
I do. One of the things I encourage about emotional intelligence, when I first say the term emotional intelligence, most people will think to themselves, oh, I'm good. My emotions are fine. We don't need to talk about that, right? It's sort of a sensitive subject. No one really wants to feel like, they need to fine tune their emotions. But that's really not what emotional intelligence is. So I encourage you to find out. Don't assume that your emotional intelligence is good. So I have a free gift that I want to share with your listeners. It is an emotional intelligence assessment. And it really helps you look at things from the perspective, why am I getting overwhelmed? Why am I getting some frustration along the way? Why am I not making the progress that I want to make? And it does this assessment from an emotional intelligence perspective. So I want to share that with all of your listeners. And I think that they will find that it could be a wonderful, helpful tool. Along with it, they'll get a basic summary that says, here are the scoring ranges, and this is where you fall on the emotional intelligence scoring range.
It's a wonderful gift. Thank you so much for offering it. Yeah. And to our listeners, you want to head on over to bizsuccessin15.com/Rhonda. That's all lowercase, RHONDA. So bizsuccessin15.com/Rhonda and grab your free emotional intelligence leadership assessment and start building your own EQ so that you can build your own successful business. And Rhonda, do you have any parting words?
I would say for parting words, number one, never ever be afraid to lean into who you are. You can only be yourself. If you're not making yourself happy, it's very difficult to sustain making anyone else around you be happy. So lean into who you are, be unapologetic and bold about pursuing your own happiness. And at the end of the day, do all that you can to fulfill your success and your dreams. And one way to do that is by making sure that you are increasing and enhancing your own emotional intelligence.
Love it. Thank you very much. And thank you for being my guest today, Rhonda. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, feel free to share it with your friends. And you want to hop on over to bizsuccessin15.com/Rhonda, where you will find all links from today's show. You'll be able to listen to Rhonda's words of wisdom to catch any golden nuggets that you might have missed. You can also catch up on any past episodes that you might have missed. And while you're there, be sure to grab your own emotional intelligence leadership assessment. I hope that you have a great week, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Biz Success in 15 with another amazing guest. Big hugs and bye-byes.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Biz Success in 15. For all links mentioned in today's show and to watch or listen to previous episodes, visit bizsuccessin15.com. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for another amazing guest.